Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester, and thank you for joining us for episode 165. Tonight, we'll give you our player and match analysis from Wolves' abysmal performance and 3-0 defeat against Brighton and Hove Albion. We'll take a deeper look at Rob Edwards again, also discuss his outburst and the different fans' reactions on that, take some of your questions, and look ahead to the season's penultimate game against Fulham next weekend. I bet you can't wait. As always, I'm joined by our midfield general in the form of Nocky. We do have one of the guests, but I will say in his defence that we have we've had some tech errors, but hope he's worth the wait. Good evening, Mr. Azzopardi. Good evening, Dave.
How's it going, guys? All right, sorry I'm a little bit late.
Like you can get famous, just keep us all waiting, that's fine. This is episode 165 with Dave Azzopardi, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. Down to business, stinker of a weekend, Knocky. Brighton Hove Albion 3, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0.
Oh, it's a bit of a rinse and repeat for the last few games, really, isn't it? We started appallingly, didn't we? We couldn't deal with their press. They were so active. They were on us. They were squeezing us. They were pressing us. We couldn't cope with it. We give the ball away really cheaply. We watched Mitoma run at us. He's hurt us every time he's played against us, I think, and we didn't deal with him. No one picks up the run of Hinchell. It's just a really awful goal to concede. I mean, Brighton are a good side. They normally give us a bit of a kick in when we are playing well, so I didn't really fancy us going into the game. And I did predict 3-0, but it could have been 3-0 after 15 minutes because they were all over us, and to give such a soft goal away so early was wretched. And then 3 minutes later, you're giving away a second goal, a free header from a corner when everyone's marking the front post, when Lewis Dunk's at the back post being marked by João Gomez. It was a mess from the start. We couldn't deal with their high tempo. We couldn't deal with their press. They moved the ball so much better than we did, and they just run us ragged. I think, look, it's not a game I think any of us expected to go in and come out with a positive result. But when you're in a game like that, you want to see your team be competitive. You want to see them put a little bit into the game, and even if you're leaving a few on them and you're picking up a few bookings, just something to give your fans a little bit to cling on to. But to turn up and surrender in the way that we did and just fold, from minute one all the way through. And maybe we improved second half slightly, but I think that was more a case of Brighton had declared. They were quite happy with the 2-0. The game was done and dusted at that point, and they were maybe got a little bit sloppy themselves. But we were never in the game. We were second best by a country mile. And I think we've said on here before, there's acceptable ways to lose football matches, and that wasn't one of them. That was an abysmal performance, and it was an absolute surrender, and it wasn't good enough at all.
Dave, I mean, as always, it's a bright start from Nocky, but that's about as bright as it's got in the last month, I'm afraid. But it's an absolute stinker from Wolves again, and it's just, as Nocky said, it's rinse and repeat. And where do we go from here? Let's talk about Brighton for a start. We know they're good. Let's respect them. But to be so naive and to set up the way we did, it just felt like there's no lessons learned. I mean, I know we've talked about attacking football and stuff, but again, I just think it was a naive performance, and we just opened the door and let Brighton do as they please.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we conceded after just under 40 seconds, and it was our own kickoff as well. And we lost possession twice in that 40 seconds because we lost it first and actually won a throw-in. And we've got two opportunities there to get a little bit of control of possession. And the fact that we've lost it twice and then being beaten so easily with the cross and then the header is just so frustrating. But yeah, going back to what Nocky said, I think Brighton have always been a thorn in our side. I actually think the worst we've ever seen Brighton play was in the reverse fixture this season at Molineux, and Vitor Pereira very much put the handbrake on when we were 1-0 up, and that his Wolves career could have gone so different if he actually stuck to his original game.
They were there for the taking, weren't they? I think as well.
Yeah, definitely. Whereas yesterday, you got fans that have travelled that length. Brighton's not round the corner, and then by 5 minutes into the game, it's done. Wolves aren't going to come back from that. And in the Premier League, you go 1-0 down, it's tough enough to get yourself back in the game. But to go 2-0 down against a team like Brighton that have done very well so far this season is frustrating. But I think there's so much to take away from it. I think, the players, as soon as they cross that white line, it's up to those 11 that are on the pitch for us. But and I have no doubt we'll come on to the comments that Rob Edwards made. But ultimately, it's still he's got to get the setup right from the set piece. He's got to get a setup right from the kickoff. The kickoff plan was to knock it back to Dan Bentley and get it 50 yards up to the pitch to our 3 forwards who are no taller than 6 foot tall. So I don't really understand, we're just giving the ball straight back to them straight away anyway. So I think he does have to take some responsibility for how slow the start was yesterday as well.
Yeah, it's the worst possible start, Nocky. We talk about slow starts to the game, but as Dave said, that I'd forgot about that. Wolves had the kickoff. They've lost the ball twice, and we've still conceded within a minute. That's if that doesn't scream we're on the beach, it does. But we're going to talk about the players as well, and we're going to talk about Rob Edwards. But for me, this is on the manager and the players. You can't just say this is totally on the players, because it keeps happening. We've seen Wolves play against Villa and Arsenal and do something at Molineux. What's different now?
I just think they're so fragile and they're so damaged. I mean, you could see from the kickoff, Brighton's plan was to get at us, get in our faces, make us uncomfortable, press and just stop that space. And we couldn't cope with it. And as soon as they put that pressure on us, we just folded. We just almost gave up, and we were giving the. And Dave's absolutely right. It's from our kickoff, and we had 2 opportunities just to try and relieve that pressure, and we couldn't do it. It's not so much the giving the ball away that frustrates me. That can happen. It's the lack of reaction after that. When you've got Mitoma running at you the way he was, and we just don't track that run. We don't stop him. We allow him to play it out wide. Hinchelwood's completely on his own, and we've got 3 centre-halves almost marking the goalkeeper. No one's tracking that run. It's just such an avoidable goal. And Hinchelwood's not the biggest player. He's a good player. I like him. I think he's a really talented young player, but he's not going to score 15, 20 goals a season. He's not going to score many goals with his head. So just watch him run in, have a free header where he's running under the defender so we can get that height and bang, he's above you. It's just so poor. And that's the most disappointing thing for me, is the way we reacted after losing the ball. But it just felt for the whole game, it looked like they didn't want the ball when they had it. They were trying to give it away as quick as they could. No one wanted to take responsibility. We've spoken before about leaders. There's such a lack of leaders in this squad. There's no one who can really take the game by the scruff of the neck and try and pull you back into it. They just went in panic mode. And I think from the first 35 seconds, they're in quicksand after that, and they just can't get out of it. It was awful. And as Dave rightly said, that's a long journey. And the parking around the ground's horrendous. And maybe you park them right to get in, or you've parked somewhere you shouldn't have done, and the game's over within 5 minutes. It's awful. And I think, to be fair, the fans there was a decent number of fans went down, and they stayed with the team as well. You could hear them all the way through the game, but they had nothing to cheer.
I mean, the old songs were out, I think, within 60 seconds, which is even a record for us.
It's normally 70, 80 minutes, or 60, 70 minutes of the game gone. So to have your game gone in 5 minutes and you're singing the old song is a bit of a red flag.
Dave, the good news is about playing 3 at the back is you're less susceptible to crosses, unless you're Wolves and you concede 2 within 5 minutes. Now, we all talk about zonal marking, and we've all got our different opinions on that. There has to be an appetite from the players to do zonal marking, because you've got to be strong and hold your sort of zone. But when you've got players like Lewis Dunk, I think they need a bit more attention. You put your biggest horrible player on him to stop him. We put our smallest. Please explain.
I wish I could. And it's strange, because I think earlier part of this season, and I seem to remember sort of early sort of period when Rob had first come in, and we were getting beaten with crosses quite easily. And then probably from February, March, we'd sort of sorted that out a little bit. It seemed to certainly quieten down. But for me, when you concede a goal as bad as it was last week against Sunderland, you surely have been working this week on making sure mistakes like that don't happen again over the last sort of 3 or 4 games of the campaign. So for a team, and for us to do the exact same again within the first 5 minutes of the match, it's not, if it happened in sort of the 89th, 90th minute where it's a bit panic stations, you can sort of appreciate it a little bit more. But this is when really the players should have been still switched on. But yeah, when you got someone as experienced, someone that's going to put their head where it hurts, like Lewis Dunk, you can't excuse it really. And Wolves, you talked about leaders, you talk about proper defenders who are not going to shirk a tackle. Wolves haven't got that, unfortunately, at the moment. I think we've probably lost that since Craig Dawson had sort of been pushed out of the squad. He was a player that in both boxes would put his head where it hurts. And we've really lacked that. And I think next season in the summer, that is got to be an area, both a leader and both a proper big brute of a defender that's going to win and challenge for every 50-50, because that defence, especially over the last few weeks, has just looked so far off it.
Yeah, Craig Dawson's still available, no club, by the way. I think he'd probably get a game now. I think we'd win more headers. He can't run, but he would certainly win more headers. Just want to go to the shape then, guys. I mean, he's been utterly miserable. Now, I don't think we played well last week. Rob would say otherwise. What I didn't understand was, we talked about youth as well. We've made one change, and I just don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. We're done, and then it took him 15 games to realise Hwang's one of our worst players. He's hardly made a kick, and all of a sudden he's starting. Now, I'm only starting players now, really, if they've got a potential to be here next season, or the ones that have to start to make sure we don't get humiliated. Lucky, I don't see any point in starting Hwang. And before anyone jumps on, this isn't an attack on Hwang. It's not his fault. But this, to me, tactically makes no sense whatsoever, this selection. And also, I don't know if that graphic's completely true, but I mean, Armstrong drifts in and out, but he shouldn't. The number 9 through the middle at this point in time should be Adam Armstrong. He's the fox in the box. He can finish. Stop messing ring. I know Rob said he's flexible, but I just don't get it. There's opportunities there to put maybe a couple of others in. And one other thing before I throw this to you both, Pedro Lima, I'm really glad he's in the side. But, and again, I might get shot down for this, at Molineux in the reverse fixture, Jackson handled one of the best wingers in the Premier League at the moment and barely gave him a kick. You don't put a kid against one of the best wide players in the Premier League. Nocky, your take on the team sheet?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I wanted Tolo in last week, and he dropped probably one of the worst centre forward performances I've ever seen. We brought Hwang in. I don't think he was the worst player on the pitch, although I'm not a big Hwang fan. But you could have played Erling Haaland up front. We don't get the ball forward. We didn't give them any kind of supply line in that first half. So the front three were almost irrelevant because they never got a kick. As for Pedro Lima, I think things are worse than I thought if you're calling for Jackson Chachua to play against Matoma, because I know he did all right at Molineux, but I don't trust him at all. And if we're looking at Lima next season, these are the kind of minutes he needs. These are the experiences he needs in his legs to see if he's good enough to play there. But it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, the squad we've got are going to finish on the lowest points tally of any Wolves squad ever in the Premier League. So collectively, the squad isn't good enough, and we've known that for quite some time. And if we were only going to play players who were going to be there next season, we probably couldn't put a six-a-side team out. So he's got to use what's available to him, and this is kind of what he's got. So I do sort of understand why he brought Hwang in, because with Hwang and Armstrong, you've got a little bit of pace against what is quite a big centre-back pairing in Brighton, but they're not the most mobile. So I can almost understand what he was trying to do. Mane, we know, has got good feet, but he's not the quickest, so you may be offsetting that with a little bit of pace. So I kind of understand what he was trying to do, but I don't think we lost the game in the attacking areas. I think we lost the game because we couldn't keep the ball in midfield. We were absolutely overrun. We didn't pose a threat wide. Defensively, we couldn't cope. So if you're doing everything wrong in your defence and your midfield, you're not giving your attackers a chance. So I get the point about not bringing Hwang in, but I don't think it made any difference to that result.
One thing I would say tactically, Dave, against a team that you know are so efficient on the ball, you know their plan, you know their style. This sounds a little bit hypocritical, but hear me out. This is a team that are far more technically gifted, that can move the ball back to front quick. So maybe what Nocky's saying about the Hwang argument and Armstrong stands a chance. But for me, you drop a third man in midfield and you start the game 5-3-2 and you spoil it. Because if you go toe-to-toe there, maybe Burnley, maybe Fulham are the games you try and do that. You go to Brighton when they're chasing Europe and you go toe-to-toe, you're going to get pumped. I get it. But surely it's a game where you drop Bellegarde into a midfield three, just to spoil it a little bit, just to try and keep the ball, slow things down, whether that first 8 seconds, if you can. Do you know what I mean? So I just thought it was so tactically naive, and this is going to go a bit of overlap to Edwards, but it really feels that he's so stubborn with his setup recently. There has to be them two players just off left and right. There has to be there. There's no real tactical flexibility. This is a game there that you have to respect the opponent, and like we did previously when we tucked in and we got back from 2-2, there's an opportunity if you stay in the game. I don't think we give ourselves any chance, and Brighton could play through us as much as they wanted because it was just easy.
Yeah, it's interesting the shape that he tries to play, and I think it was more January time when sort of Matthias Mane had properly broken into the first team setup, and there were games like we picked up a couple of wins. I think Newcastle had come to Molineux, and Mane was sitting as like almost the left of a holding midfield, and then whenever in possession, he was bursting forward with the ball. Now, I think away from home, when you're against stronger opposition, you can try and do the same thing. But I think any of that current front three there in Armstrong, Hwang and Mane aren't the players to do that with. I think Bellegarde, like you said there, is probably the best player to do it with. Back in January, I probably would have said Angel Gomez would have been, but he's been so far off it. So I do agree with you. I think probably out of Hwang or Matthias Mane, you bring Bellegarde in instead. And like I said, out of possession, you sit him a bit deeper alongside the front three. And then when you've got possession, he's got that a little bit more going forward. What we don't know, between us three and anyone watching at home, what conversations are being had behind the scenes, because I have no doubt, there's probably only a handful of those players that we can see on the screen there that are going to stay here next season. But there's got to be more reasons why some of those players on the bench didn't start or aren't playing. Why is Jean-René Bellegarde not getting more minutes? Obviously, I know certain players like Krejci and so on are coming back from injury. Tolu, it's clear, there's been things going on behind the scenes. It's likely he moves on as well, although his performances on the pitch haven't helped. So I think there could be, whether it's on Tuesday or at least at the end of the season, a lot of things come out in the press about certain players. David Muller-Wolfer as well. I don't think Hugo's been bad, but why has he not got more minutes as well? Mm-hmm. So it's tactically, I just don't have a clue. I mean, we can discuss it, and I think Rob has set us up wrong in certain games, and I do agree probably should have, bulked us out a little bit just to, try and get a little bit of control on this game. But there's so many question marks and so many reasons why are certain players playing and why are certain players not getting the minutes that ultimately and annoyingly, as fans, we don't know.
Yeah, great stuff. This is episode 165 of the Wolves Report. We're talking, so we say talk sports then, talking Wolves, Dave, Azzopardi, Mark Knock and myself, Brian Lester. You'll take either, I'm sure you will, Dave. Knocky, looking on the bench, Jackson unused. Again, I'll just make my argument for dealing with the pace, but obviously Pedro Lima, that's a fair argument. Matt Doherty, been struggling with injury. Ladislav, not used at all. If you're not fit, you shouldn't be on the bench. Surely if he's, he'd be our best player playing, and he's a massive miss, and exposes probably how limited Tosi is. Jean Rickner comes on at 67 minutes. For me, he starts. I just don't understand. He's the one player for me that can travel with the ball from midfield on a regular basis, get between the lines, take you up the pitch, take a bit of pressure off. Angel Gomez, I'm not sure he's going to be a Premier League footballer. Technically very gifted, but gets bullied a lot. And then Tolu. Starts Tolu one week, gives him 1 minute the next week. I think for me, gents, Tolu's the guy that comes on when you've had an hour of Armstrong or Hwang pressing you. Tolu comes on then to give you an absolute handful because he's not slow, and we saw at Brentford he nearly won the game for us. So, Knocky for me, tactically, selection-wise, and tactics, whether the players are off it or not, when you're set up like that and you're not using the players that you've got and all the armoury you've got in front of you, it once again raises some massive tactical concerns about Rob Edwards.
It does, and Tolu's such a conundrum for me because he comes on and sometimes you think he's got potential to be a really, really good Premier League striker. He looks physical, he's dangerous. We saw what he did to Van Dijk. We've seen what he's done to a few centre halves in this division. Then other weeks he looks like he's never kicked a ball before. So he is a little bit of a conundrum. I don't know. I would have liked to have seen something totally different. I don't trust Yerson Mosquera at all. I think he's the way he behaves and the way that he approaches games is dangerous. So I wouldn't have been against us trying something a bit different and maybe going to a 4 at the back, bringing Muller-Wolfer on to play at full back and just do something a little bit different because I feel like Lima's more of a right back than he is a wing back. So could you have gone maybe 4-2-3-1 and tried to squeeze the midfield a little bit and just shut them attacking lines down? I don't know. There's lots of different things you could have done. He just seems very much like he wants to stick with what he keeps doing, and it's just not been effective for us. And we know that Gomez and Andre and the two aren't good enough at this level. They don't offer enough going forward. They don't recycle the ball well enough for me. And you look at the output, I think it's 1 goal each, and that's your 2 central midfielders. So I like to have Bellegarde in there. I think Bellegarde in a 3 makes us a little bit more dangerous, and it bridges that gap from midfield to attack, and you can get the ball forward a little bit better. He's also one of the only players in our team who can actually carry the ball as well. So, yeah, I think it's a really good point that Bellegarde should be in. But it's just such a poor squad collectively, isn't it? There's nothing in there. I don't think there's any system or any personnel he could have played which would have made us any better. Maybe we don't concede after 30 seconds, but you can't really legislate for that. I think Rodrigo Gomez, he flatters to deceive. Sometimes he looks really good, and sometimes it just looks like he's not going to make it. There's no one you look at that bench that you think you should definitely be starting every week. The only one I think I would like to see get more minutes is Bellegarde. Other than that, they're very much like for like in terms of quality.
Yeah, Dave, just going back to this sort of tactical rigidness of Rob Edwards, really, and the unwillingness to change it, because as Nocky mentions then, with what we have, we probably wouldn't have changed the outcome, but it's the same old Wolves trying the same old things. And he makes a really good point regarding Andre and João Gomez, who I think are both decent footballers. But the problem is when there's no one, because they're not guys that are going to thread through balls through or charge forward and get to the edge of the box. So they're kind of limited in what they can do. And if you let them keep doing that and not helping them against a team that's going to press you, the ball's going to keep coming back and you're going to keep getting punished. So it's just, it's really frustrating. And I don't think Rob's helped himself again tactically. I don't think he's helped himself afterwards, but we'll get onto that anyway. Let's just have a quick review of the team. I mean, we're going to be really quick. Dave, is there anyone you can say that is coming away with any credit from that game? Because I'm struggling, to be honest. I like Andre, but he's managed to give a goal away after a minute, so it's hard to talk about him.
I struggled to pick out an individual, to be honest. I don't think anyone stood out really. You had Mateus, Mane had that little glimmer in the
little run, didn't he, in the box, yeah.
Where he, and he was unfortunate. I think it was Armstrong the rebound came to, and for whatever reason didn't just put his foot through it. Other than that, so little in terms of quality and throughout the game, to be honest. So, I'd struggle to pinpoint anyone. But quickly going back to what you were saying about the tactical side of things with Rob, what assuming he's still going to be here next season, not so much a concern because I think we've had good times and good memories with a back five. But my concern is the fact that he's sticking with this more than likely means that we're possibly going to be seeing this again next season. Now, if that is the case, like you've mentioned, Andre and João Gomez in isolation, I think they're two very good footballers. But I think, to be truthful, I think they're holding us back massively. I agree with Nocky in regards to the goals. I don't mean the goals is the only stat that matters, but if we're only getting 2 goals from your central midfield, that's one thing. We could get away with it when we had Neves and João Moutinho. And Neves always popped up with a goal now and then, but you normally had 2 or 3 players in front of them that scored plenty of goals. Wolves have not got that. So when your front three aren't firing, you need to find goals from the other areas of the pitch, and Wolves just have not done that. But yeah, I mean, in regards to yesterday, I mean, you've probably had chats throughout the season similar to this, but definitely yesterday is really, really difficult to pinpoint anybody that showed any sort of quality in a Wolves shirt. Yeah,
tough one, Knocker. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're going to complete the trio with Dave and I. I'm not sure anyone comes away with any credit in that game. It's just you're 2-0 down. After 5 minutes, it's over, and then they're just toying with you. In reality, that game could have been 5 or 6 and nobody complained. I don't know if they felt sorry for us or they weren't ruthless, but it could have been embarrassing. Luckily, it was only embarrassing for 5 minutes, then you're just miserable for the rest of your Saturday afternoon. Anyway, Knocker, any positives?
Not really, no. I think the only positive you can take is there's only 2 games left. That's about it.
This is episode 165 of the Wolves Report. We're talking Wolves. Dave as a party, Nocky and myself, Ryan Lester. Almost, I'm taking it in turns to forget your names and whatever. I don't know. I'm trying to read 100 things at once. Now, there has been a change in tact from the manager. They're trying their best. They're giving everything. These lads are doing everything in training. They can't give any more. They care. We all care. Is that true, Rob? So post-game in the interview room afterwards, I don't know if you've caught the clip. You've probably seen a little bit of on Sky and on social media. Rob Edwards said, yes, definitely when answering a question. Some of them have got to go. We're bottom of the league. It's been embarrassing. They've got to go. And then when the journalist jumps in to ask another question, he goes, have I not been clear with that, in quite an aggressive tone? Not quite as aggressive. I'm not really, really aggressive, but snappy. Like he was a little bit snappy with Mike Taylor on the. And I mean, Dave talked about that. He's a bit snappy with Mike Taylor on Friday afternoon for about having the audacity to ask about tacking football. Who'd have thought it? Nocky, will the real Rob Edwards please stand up?
Yeah, I'm fine with them comments. I think that's what we've wanted, and we've spoken before about. Just be honest with us. Don't try and sugarcoat what we're seeing and try and pretend it's something that it's not. We have been embarrassing this season. We continue to be embarrassed week in, week out. We're getting beat. We're only the second team in Premier League history to have lost to every other club in the league. So when you're coming out and trying to defend the players, there's nothing to defend. It's been awful. So I'm happy with him coming out and making comments like that. I wish he'd have done it earlier, because I think he would have had more fans on side if we'd have seen that level of honesty, as opposed to trying to gaslight us a little bit with what's actually going on. But yeah, it's a manager who either feels like he's got to start some self-preservation because he could potentially be out the door, or he's just had an absolute heads gone moment and he's launched everyone else under the bus. But either way, these are the kind of comments I would expect to see. And whether it's right to say those sort of things or not, it shows a little bit of, I want to say, positive emotion, because he's saying what we're all feeling. So yeah, I'm comfortable with them comments. It's the first time I think he's been really ruthlessly honest with us as fans as to the quality in the squad.
Before we dig into it and the history of how we've got to this, Dave, just your take on those comments after the game.
Yeah, I mean, and I think he's right, but it was a surprise to see it. But it's sort of similar to what Nocky said. I think he's got his guard up now. It's, self-defense mode. I think, we had the chat about the pre-match presser as well, and even that, there was a change in tone that I'd not seen from Rob Edwards before.
A little bit aggressive.
Yeah, you normally see him sit down, smiling, and I know that rubs some people up the wrong way, but dead straight face. And even when he was asked about the Wolves women promotion, it was almost as if it was an inconvenience for him to talk about it. So yeah, some of the things that he was mentioning sort of pre-match, and then this was a real shock. Now, but it makes me think that, I mentioned about the corners and them, working on them. Comments like this make me think, did they really work on them quite hard last week? And then the first opportunity they've got to defend it, they've thrown it all away, and that's probably what's hacked him off. I don't know, but I think he's now throwing the jabs, and I think last Saturday really hurt him with the response that he got from the fans, and now he's trying to say things to possibly get him back in the good books. But it's certainly sort of no more Mr. Nice Guy now from Rob Edwards, I think, between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, and just to make my point clear on it, I have no issue with the words that he said at all. I know I've had a few exchanges with people on socials, and that's fine, because we're not going to agree. I agree with what he said. I'm just like, well, from going to back everybody every week and force feeding us how much they care and how much they're trying and how they're giving every drop, there's been no middle ground here, Nocky. He's gone from love these boys, they're giving absolutely everything, to completely throwing them under the bus. Now, granted, after yesterday, most of them deserve those comments. They absolutely did. So what I would question is then, well, surely this has been building up. You've not just suddenly felt after one game you're going to let loose and go in on them all. You must have felt this for a while. So what frustrates me is you've been protecting 11 and antagonising 30,000 now for the best part of a month. You've overpraised them. You didn't need to praise them. And now, for me, you look a little bit silly. Granted, I like what you said. I respect that. But I think you look a bit silly protecting people relentlessly, force-feeding us the effort they're trying hard. I don't give a shit if they're trying hard. That's your job. You've been force-feeding that down our throats every single week. And all of a sudden now you don't like it and it's someone else's fault. Nocky.
Yeah, I suppose if I'm playing devil's advocate, he's probably said what he said to try and protect the team, because even though we knew we were in the situation we were in, he's got to try and get a performance out of those players. And I think Dave's touched on it, and he's absolutely right. tactically, he would have known Brighton were going to come flying out of the traps. He would have known they were going to put us under pressure. They were going to know they had runners and that they've got pace on the wings and they're going to try and squeeze you and pressure. We didn't deal with it. You know that they're dangerous from set pieces. We didn't deal with it. So tactically, what we've tried to do, probably training in preparation for this game, we haven't executed in the first 5 minutes and we're completely out of the game. Rob's a human being like the rest of us. When you've come into a new role and you know, he knew we were going to go down. We all knew that, but he's probably thought in his head, right, if I can pick up 5, 6, maybe 7 wins between now and the end of the season, get a bit of momentum, I'll have the fans on side and we'll be ready to go. He's seen all of his tactical plans dissolve because incrementally we've got worse and worse. And we've had a couple of little spells where we've had a little bit of life in us. You think of the Arsenal game, Villa, Liverpool, we've shown signs of life. We go to Brentford and we get a good point there. But the collapse since we've had that break has been phenomenal, really. And as a manager, when you're trying to set a team out and do something a certain way, when you're seeing everything you're trying to do collapse around you, there's going to be a breaking point where you are going to lose your head. And I think that's what's happened. He's got to the point where, why should I defend these players? Because they're not doing what I'm asking them to do. They're not delivering the game plan that we're setting up for them. And week after week, he's taking the hits. He's getting called out by the fans, getting told you don't know what you're doing, and other more severe comments after the game. The players are almost getting away with it scot-free. So you've got to have a breaking point. As much as he is responsible for what's gone on in terms of his tenure at the club, he's not responsible for the relegation. There's a lot of other people who are, but predominantly those players haven't delivered anywhere near with the quality that we should have in that squad. And we know it's not a squad that's going to be challenging the top half of the table or even mid-table, but you look at some of the players that on paper, quality-wise, we've got some really good players in that squad. None of them have delivered and lots of them are hiding away and they'll all already be looking for moves. You talk about Krejci not playing. There's a bit of me that thinks is he not playing, he doesn't want to get injured because he's looking for his move or he's got a World Cup coming up. Players seem to get niggling injuries this time of the season when they're looking for moves. So I think those players have been hiding. I think they've been hiding all season. They take a huge chunk of it. And Rob's obviously going to take the brunt and he's got to the point where he thinks, no, sod you, I'm going to fire back.
Yeah, that's fair points. Krejci and Bellegarde both going to the World Cup. Bellegarde recently into international football this season, I believe. Previously a French under 21. And Krejci is now the captain of his country. Both subs, you've got to ask those questions, haven't you? It is strange timing for both those. But Dave, I think, although I agree with what he said, I do think there is an air of self-preservation here. I think he's now on full protect Rob Edwards. I want to be manager of Wolves next season. I do feel it was a bit overstaged. I believe what he says. I believe he's thought that for a while, but he's been more interested. He's prioritised protecting the players as of telling the truth to the fans. As with his nibble at Mike Taylor, as with this, I think this is now, these last few games and few weeks, is about Rob Edwards protecting Rob Edwards.
Yeah, I agree. I think that some of the, before Friday, he wasn't really, like you guys have already said, he wasn't really making any sort of comments close to this. And then Friday pre-match, he's trying to deflect the blame. You know, he's trying to basically say that, you know, a lot of the situation isn't on him and it's not his fault. And then obviously this was the main quote from post-match yesterday. But I don't really want to throw him under the bus much, but I think if you saw the one angle when Rob says this, obviously not the Sky Sports angle, you've got the head of press at Wolves sat next to him, almost smiling and nodding when he says it. So I think internally they know that he's almost been bottling it up and he needs to say it. He needs to get his point across. And I think at the club they've said, well, if you think they're crap, tell everybody you think they're crap, and that you might get some fans on side with you then. I just think, like you've said, he's probably done it 2 or 3 weeks too late because he's already broken off a lot of the relationship with a huge percentage of this fan base. He saw it last week where he didn't even come across to the fans because he didn't want to antagonise the situation. And now he's trying to do it. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of fans, although, you know, like we've said here, we agree with the quote, I think he's already pushed too many fans away. Tuesday for him, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is absolutely massive. And I cannot imagine the questions that he's going to get asked, the questions about him that are going to be asked to Matt Jackson and Nathan Sheet, and what his responses are going to be as well. They're going to, Tuesday could actually be make or break for him and his Wolves career, I think.
Yeah, someone's asked a question about that, so I'll save that till the end. But it's a great point, and I just wish we were going, to be honest, because I'd love to be sat down again like I was a couple of months ago, asking some questions. It would be really good. Nocky, self-preservation, Rob. Although we agree what he's saying, we've seen a different side to him. Is it a bit forced? Is he playing the game, or as Dave alluded to, then has the damage been done now, and he's not going to recover those fans?
Yeah, I think the relationship's too fractured. And we've spoke about this before, haven't we, that we can't go into next season fractured as a fan base and as a club. We need to be on the same page. If we go into next season and we're already wanting the manager out, we ain't kicked a ball yet, we've got a huge problem. And as I've said before, if we win the first 5 and then we lose the 6th, the only focus will be on that 6th game, because there's fans he will never win round, no matter what we do now. It's just not going to happen. I think he knows he's in trouble. I think he knows that the fan base it's not 50-50 anymore. I think there's a lot more that want him out than want him to stay at the club. And Tuesday, as you both rightly said, is absolutely massive for him. If he's not 100% on it during that time with the fans, he's going to end up in a really nasty situation. So it's difficult for him. But yeah, he's in self-preservation mode now. He's trying to keep his job.
There was a brilliant tweet that followed this up by JP from Concept Scouting. He's, I think, a regular on Dave as a party show, and this was the tweet. He's absolutely right, but there is a clear unwillingness to shoulder any responsibility. When Wolves got results against Villa, Liverpool and Arsenal, I wonder if he saw it at his team then. Brilliant tweet from JP. He's also put an article out tonight regarding potential new managers. That's definitely worth a look, and Concept Scouting is certainly worth a follow as well. Nocky, I think this is an absolutely brilliant tweet. We've had JP on this show, I think, middle part of last year as well, and he's a regular on the spaces that we do, even though we haven't done for him for a little while. This is a really good point, and the key bit here for me, Nocky, is the unwillingness to shoulder any responsibility. I don't recall, since Rob Edwards arriving, in any game that we've lost whatsoever, got that wrong, probably could have done that. Yeah, that wasn't quite right. For me, it's always been someone else's fault. Now, the situation we're in, just for clarity, for anyone jumps in, I'm not blaming Rob Edwards for this season. But I do think Rob Edwards could have done better this season. And I think he's flirted with a few moments that have been really good in the games mentioned there by Concept Scouting. But there's been some games when there have been some really tactical head scratchers. As I mentioned to Dave earlier on, he's been a bit stiff and a bit rigid in his flexibility to change things up. So for me, Nocky, I think this is absolutely bang on and something else that we're looking at Molyneux.
I agree, and I think there's been a collective lack of accountability taken by a lot of different people at the club, from the playing staff to the managers to the owners. A lot of people have got a lot of things wrong. We know the damage that was done by Vitor and his team and Jeff Shea, and we haven't recovered from that. But there's no one who's really willing to stick their head above the parapet and say, you know what, we've got this badly wrong. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, we beat Villa. You're going to celebrate those wins against Villa and Liverpool and the draw against Arsenal because you've not had much to cheer. So, yes, I want to see the manager celebrate. Maybe bombing down the length of the Billy Wright and steaming towards the South Bank could be slightly over the top. But at the same time, we'd probably criticise a manager if he wasn't showing enough emotion. So he's almost in a little bit of a lose-lose situation, whatever he does. He can only take responsibility for what he's done. And if I'm trying to be balanced, which I have, I've tried to be balanced with Rob Edwards for the season. Before he came in, we were on 2 points and I was relatively sure we were going to smash Derby's record. We've managed to get ourselves past that point. And I think up till the big break we had after the Brentford game, I could see some real green shoots of recovery. It's since that we've really gone off a cliff, and that's where the performances have dropped. The level of work rate, effort, pride in the shirt has dropped. Tactical now seems to have dropped a little bit as well. So maybe if we don't have that break, it's a different conversation and we're not so worried about Rob Edwards. But since that break, we've been atrocious, and there's no defending the results or the performances that we've seen from the team or the manager.
Carrying on the theme of this tweet from Concept Scouting, Dave, I would argue that this last month has been worse than the last month under the previous manager.
Probably in terms of manner of performances and in the manner of results. I think under Vitor we still had that element of threat about us. in terms of going forward. I know the Fulham game when he was sacked was abysmal, and but I think he got it wrong. And to be fair to Vitor, he did. I couldn't pinpoint an exact match, but I can vividly sort of remember him coming out in press conferences admitting he got things wrong at times as well. It was funny. I had a chat with Joe about this tweet earlier because even the Arsenal game, if you remember, when we came from behind, even then Edwards had a little jab at the fans from that game, talking about support and wanting us to support them a little bit more. And I thought that was probably at the time his best, biggest result as well. And instead of sort of, praising things, I remember he was talking about his record at the club at the time and the fans not showing enough support. And I thought, because we got the big result, I think it sort of got brushed over. But now in hindsight, I think that's it's a bit of a bad thing to say at the time, really. But yeah, like I said, since the international break, it's been abysmal. He post internationals, or going into the break, we knew we had a good run. That break was going to be one of two things. We're either going to, really work on things and come back as a really strong side and unit this last part of the season, or it was going to all fall apart. And frustratingly, it's all falling apart. But since that West Ham game, and being relegated, it's just completely fallen off. But he needed to get credit in the bank, and it's gone so far the opposite way now. Like, he had doubters even when we were winning matches. So I can't imagine, what the sort of situation is now. And if you asked for a poll from season ticket holders whether you'd want Rob Edwards in the dugout on game week 1 of the Championship season, I would assume the answer is going to be massively against him. But like we've already said, I think you'd need to all be singing from the same hymn sheet from the start of next season, because you've got so much unnecessary pressure on Rob from game week 1 next year.
Yeah, great points from Nocky and from Dave. This is episode 165 of the Wolves Report. We're talking Wolves, Dave, as a party, Mark Knock and myself, Ryan Lester. Thank goodness I remembered everyone's name this time round. Well done, me and my old age. Just finishing up on this, Nocky. We're not asking a manager to come out and tweet and own it every single week. I got this wrong, I got that wrong. But we're asking with an honest, open view, a fair reflection on everything. This is what I did. It didn't work out. This is what I was trying to achieve. A tactical explanation of what you tried and why it went wrong. I think that will buy you fans way more time than instead of each week telling you a load of gumph about they're doing their best time and time again. We're not asking them to go, it's all my fault, everything's my fault. I don't want that. I just want an honest reflection to hear what the manager has to say. Granted, I mean, there's some reasonable football knowledge on the panel tonight. We know our football. And I would like to think when the manager comes out, it comes out as a reasonable reflection how we've seen the game. I don't think that's happened for quite some time now. His thing, what he said after the game, was the most honest thing he'd said, which leads me to believe that the last month has just been total rubbish. So a little bit more ownership. Maybe this is a lesson for the future. Just be a little bit more honest with the fans. The fans watch their team every single week. This is the additional part of the family. We love our football club. Just tell us the truth, be honest, and you'll get people on side way quicker than pretending we're seeing something we're not, just to protect the squad and annoy the fan base.
Yeah, I don't think we're an unrealistic fan base. I think we're quite balanced in our expectations. We don't think we're going to start challenging for Premier League titles and winning FA Cups, but it's not unreasonable for us to think that we should be a mid-table Premier League team and maybe flirts with Europe every now and then. I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation. So when your manager's coming out and not telling you the truth, which is quite clear, you're going to get your back up. But I think Dave touched on a really good point, actually, around the comments after the Arsenal game. It's not just results which have driven Wolves fans' frustration with the manager. It is those little comments. And he did it after I think it was the Villa game, when he made a comment about, am I allowed to smile? I know the fans don't like it when I smile. It's those little comments that have caused a little bit of this frustration as well. And when you're in the situation we're in, he's a very intelligent and very articulate man, but you've got to learn to read the room better, because we've gone through a hell of a lot this season and we're seeing teams who were way below us a few years ago absolutely flying past us. And you look at some of the teams above us now, I'd argue we're bigger than Bournemouth, who've got a chance of being Champions League next year. We're bigger than Brentford, who've got a chance of being in Europe next year. I think we're bigger than Brighton, who've got a chance of being in Europe next year. So all these teams have come up and they've flown past us. And it's not just them, it's the teams like Fulham. And, when you've come in and you've got it as wrong as we have, you maybe want your manager to come in and almost act like one of the fans and fire out some comments and show those little bits of emotion. But when he's coming out and talking about, can I smile, or I need the backing, I need the support, when you've been through what we've been through, not just this season, we've been circling the drain for a few years. It's really poor from his perspective to think he's got enough in the bank to do that at this stage of his career. Nuno could have done it because of what he did for us as a club. Edwards has done absolutely nothing for us as a manager. So to come in and expect to have that level of, I can say what I want and you lot will just take it, that's a massive case of someone not reading the room properly.
Yeah, great stuff from Nocky and Dave, and also JP. Thanks for your tweet being a big part of tonight's show. Bill, it will be in the post. We are 45 minutes into episode 165. Let's get the comments back up. Let's ask some questions. First comment in from Advance was Gurpreet Dillon saying, talking Wolves and the Wolves Report coming together when we need them most. I believe this is our third crossover, Dave. I've been on yours once, you've been on mine once. I think it's the third one. Me and Dave have talked about this in the past. It's something we intend to carry on doing. Hopefully it's good for us both, and we just both love talking about Wolves. And it's nice to get a young, handsome chap on the show as opposed to people having to look at us all evening anyway. But less about me anyway. So Gurpreet, thank you very much for your comment there. Let's have a little look through here. I've got yours already. Carl says, do you think the tide is turning in where the fan base is now getting so angry and anxious of what is going on at the club? Since those comments last week, Dave, we saw a chap go into the car park and ask a few questions, but it has come to light that Jeff Shee has been around. When we were both in the same meeting, we were assured that he was nothing to do with Wolverhampton Wanderers. These are a few sort of worrying times for me when me and Nocky talked about this a lot last week, but this is someone who I hold responsible massively, in my opinion, for the damage that's done at the football club. And when you're looking at the chairman and the director of football and everyone else in the eye, and we're assured he's no part of Wolverhampton Wanderers, this is why people are getting edgy again, because have the chairs, as Nocky said, I think, have just pushing the deck chairs around the Titanic here or what?
Yeah, this is why Tuesday is massive, and I have no doubt this is going to be one of the big things, that spoke about. And when we had the meeting in January, it was one of the first things, we wanted assurances that Jeff Shee was nothing to do with Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, he was at Compton. We don't know what that meeting was about. They probably won't tell us what that meeting was about, but what we need assurances of in person, and there's going to be over 100 people, I think, there Tuesday. They're going to be able to see and look Matt Jackson and Nathan Shee and others in the eye. We've got to make sure this guy's got nothing to do with his football club. There might be some commercial deals and stuff behind the scenes, which doesn't, it will bother some people. It doesn't bother me a huge amount, but anything to do with the footballing side of things and the day-to-day operations of Wolverhampton Wanderers, he should have no part of whatsoever. So that's something that does need clearing up. But like I'm sure you guys spoke about last week, we spoke about on ours. If you've got a meeting with Jeff, fine. But why the hell are you doing it at Compton? Why are you even risking being found out there? So, big questions and big answers needed on Tuesday, I think, about that. Absolutely.
Cole, thank you for being part of the Wolves Report. As always, Lee Stewart asked Nocky, once the season is over, do you see the guys... do you and the guys have any faith at all in Fosun putting football people in the roles they should be in and leave the business side to the businessmen? I mean, again, I think we asked these questions, Dave, didn't we, in January? Nocky?
No, I've got absolutely no faith that they'll do that. And I think when you look at what we're going to have to do next season, the amount of players that we're going to lose and the amount of players that we're going to have to bring in just to try and be competitive, you need the right people. You need football brains in there. You need people who know the Championship and how difficult that league can be. The noises we're hearing is that we only want 1 year in that division, and it could be because we're going the other way if we're not careful, because it is such an unforgiving league to be in. I'm really nervous about next year. I'm really nervous about it because I think with the amount of work we're going to have to do, I've said this before, I don't believe we're going to be in a position to challenge with the amount of activity Wolves are going to need. And if we are, it's not going to be at the start of the season. It's more likely to be a Southampton where you're pushing on late towards the end of the season because there's so much work that has to be done. If we do it quickly, maybe we can be successful, but history tells us we're probably not going to do that. So have we got the right people there now? I'd argue probably not at this moment in time, especially when over half the fan base don't like the manager. It's a massive summer for us, and I've got no confidence that they'll get it right, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it, Dave? Because Nathan kind of assured us that he was happy with the team he had round him. Again, Nathan's new to football. Matt Jackson's had promoted, obviously, from a team that was failing previously. Matt Wild's had a promotion from a team that was... So I hope those guys do well. I hope they prove us wrong. We're not even sure if the manager's going to be there next season. But there's a comment come up, and I just want to clear this up. And I'll never duck any of these. Kage says, Ryan absolutely hates Rob. It's funny watching him trying to be balanced, but he's about as subtle as a fart in a lift. I mean,
you've been called that before, haven't you? A fart?
Yeah, I've been called different things to that, and mainly on our group chat. I can categorically say I do not hate Rob Edwards. I played in a charity game with Rob Edwards a while ago back. Whenever I've spoke to him, he's always been nice. I think Rob is a really, really good human. Just because I think he's a good human doesn't mean he's a good manager for Wolverhampton Wanderers. I'm really concerned about Rob's ability, whether it's right or wrong, to lead Wolves to promotion in first or second place or via the playoffs next season, which for me is the minimum requirement. The club owe this to the fans. Sold a load of players in January, going to sell a load in the summer. They've been charging us astronomical prices and delivering us an absolutely turgid product. So therefore, I expect Wolverhampton Wanderers to be challenging for promotion next season. And with that in mind, they have to have a 9 out of 10 manager. And at this moment in time, I'm not sure Rob Edwards is that guy. So do I hate Rob Edwards? No, I'm just really concerned that he's the guy to get promoted. So, but thank you for your comment. It's made the guys laugh, and I'll never shy away from stuff like that. But thank you for bringing that to my attention. Get rid of that comment now. Carry on with the questions. Lee Stewart, thank you for being part of the latest Wolves report. I think we covered this briefly earlier on, Dave. Edwards comments a sign of a manager cling on to his job or someone who has the backing to say what he wants. That's a good point. Because if he can say what he wants now, does he know he's the guy for next season?
It's interesting. Again, I think internally they'll probably know, but I think as fans, it was funny. I think he got asked on Friday in regards to does he think he's still got the backing of the board, and he said yes. And I know Gary O'Neill and Vitor Pereira both said the same thing a week before they were sacked. So it was interesting. But like I mentioned earlier, the fact that I think internally they want to keep him around, and I think they know that he's probably going to be the gaffer on Tuesday next season. Sorry, I think he will be there.
He might make it till Tuesday.
Yeah, but I think he will be the gaffer next season, and that's probably why he's saying that now. He knows that a number of those players won't be there next campaign, and we sort of alluded to it. He may have worked his socks off over the week to try and right some wrongs, and within 5 minutes, those players have completely cocked up what he's tried to work on. We don't know. But certainly, he's rubbed people up the wrong way too much over the last few weeks. And although some of his comments this weekend, I think people could side with a little bit more, I think he's already broken that trust. So, I actually think from that question, I actually think it's somebody who probably is a little bit more comfortable in his job than people realise.
Yeah, interesting point. I still think he's under massive pressure. Nocky, while we're on that question, will Rob Edwards be Wolves manager come kick off in August this next season?
I think he will, yeah.
I don't think he will be. So I've lost 2-1 again. That's fine. There'll be some more comments about hating Rob Edwards. Bring them on. Matt Price, thank you for being part of the latest Wolves report. Let's have a look. Here we go. Bobby Smith, always some interesting stuff. If the players don't care, why should we? Bobby, why do we go to football? Because I certainly don't go for the football anymore. So we can't help it. We're all here because we do care. And that's why we're talking about it now. And that's why Nocky and Dave have given up their Sunday evenings to come and talk about Wolverhampton Wanderers. And I'll be there on Sunday because I can't help myself because I love Wolves and I'm just stuck with it. But while we're on that subject, Kev Taylor asks an absolute stinker. Give me a good reason to renew my season ticket. Mr. Mark Knock.
Because it's your club, and that's it. You have good times, you have bad times, but you can't celebrate those good times unless you be willing to stick with them through the bad times. And as frustrating as it is and as difficult as it is to follow this team, I wouldn't be anywhere else on a Saturday because it's my football team and I love it dearly. And my son's 11 years old. He's got the bug. He wants to go. He was excited to renew his season ticket. The Championship's a difficult league. We know that, but we'll see more games. We'll see more wins. We'll hopefully see some better attacking football. And let's be honest, regardless of what league we're in, we're always going to follow this club. If we disappear to non-league, it's still your football club. And I love them far more than I should. If your wife treated you the way this football club does, you'd have been there years ago. So it's in your blood, isn't it? You can't get away from it.
Dave's not married yet, Nocky. So
I saw someone say yesterday. I've been calling my wife Wolves because she kicks off every 5 minutes. So yeah,
that's a beauty. You should tweet that one out.
Yeah,
is that on socials?
I saw someone put it on TikTok yesterday. So
yeah, that's an absolute beauty. This is the stinker we're going to talk about now. I'll give it a little bit more time. On via Facebook this week, Paul Fragile says, could the fans forum have come at a worse time for the Wolves hierarchy? Now, again, mention back to our meeting in January, Dave. We did what we could. We didn't pull a single punch. We nailed down about the season tickets. We did sort of get this meeting out of it as well, which is probably the reason why none of us are going, which is kind of what we agreed. But this couldn't have come at a worse time for Wolverhampton Wanderers, for the club. For the fans, this has come at a perfect time. But put a spin on that, and I'll go part 2 for that, Unoke. But yeah, this couldn't have come at a worse time for Wolves, could it?
No, and I was just trying to think when they announced it, because I can't remember. It was definitely announced before this really, really poor run of form, I think. So unless they were thinking, we might get a couple of decent results between now and then, and spirits might be a little bit higher. But I'm half, it wouldn't surprise me come. I don't think they cancel the thing, but maybe tomorrow or Tuesday morning that Rob Edwards pulls out or something like that, because I can't even imagine what questions could come his way and get some sort of decent response. I think there will be some people go there, and they've got every right to go there, just no holds barred, they'll go for it. But I still think for the wider fan base that are going to listen back to it, it needs to be constructive, the meeting, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough, as it was in January. Contrary to popular opinion, we weren't sat there with the tea and cake. It was quite
cake was lovely, Dave.
Yeah. At times it was quite an honest and difficult conversation. I assume on Tuesday it's going to be like that as well. But with Rob Edwards there, I'm going to be really, really intrigued. I'm shocked that he was even part of the original plan. I think Matt and Nathan, she probably would have sufficed. With Rob added in there as an extra, it'll be interesting. But yeah, in terms of timing, it couldn't come much worse for them. Internally, I bet they're bricking it, to be honest. But for fans, I think, like I've said, in terms of relationships, they've all got something to prove. Matt Jackson, we've met him, but I think he's got a lot to prove, because a lot of people's impressions on him is just off the car crash BBC WM radio interview he did with Jeff.
Nathan Shee at Grasshopper as well, didn't he? I think as well.
Yeah. But then Nathan Shee, we've not seen a huge amount of him in person. A lot of people still think he's AI. And then Rob, I can't even imagine what is going to be asked and what's going to be answered. So huge night for the football club, I think, on Tuesday.
Nocky, putting a spin on that, looking at the other way around, could it have come at a better time for Wolverhampton Wanderers, so those guys in the room can prove themselves and answer, hopefully, an absolutely 2 hours of horrendous, honest questioning? Because if we go there and they get soft questions, which I'm sure they won't, it's not going to prove anything. If you have people go in that room, you want asking them the worst possible related questions to this football club to give them the answers. Surely that, in another world, that's the best time to come, because now's the time we want answers.
Yeah, from a fan's perspective, this is the right time to do this, because everyone's angry, they're frustrated, they're hurt, they're seeing their football club getting a kicking every week. From Rob and and the Wolves' perspective, it couldn't have come at a worse time. They'd have wanted to come off the back of 2 or 3 wins and an exciting build up to next season. I think to Dave's point, and he's absolutely right, it's got to be constructive. If someone walks in there and the first question is, "Why are you an arsehole, Rob?" You're not going to get any. You're not going to get any traction for that. You're just going to get people's backs up. So it's got to be constructive questions. It's got to be questions that have got some science behind them, a little bit of validity. We can't just go in there spewing insults because we're just not going to get anywhere doing that. So it's a rare opportunity to hold a lot of people who are accountable to account and find out the direction of the club. And that's the key for me. I want to know where the club's going. I want to know what the long-term vision is. I want to know what we are trying to achieve as a football club. If our end goal is to sit in the Premier League between mid-table and try not to get relegated, fine, as long as we know what's coming. I just want them to manage expectations. So it has come at a really interesting time. There's no way when they booked this, they expected us to be in the run of form that we're in. But they're going to have to face up to it. And I'll be disappointed if anyone pulls out. If Rob Edwards pulls out for any reason at all, it's only going to make things worse for him, which is why I think he will attend this. And he's a very, very intelligent, articulate guy. I think he'll handle himself the right way. It's just going to be interesting to see what's posed to him. You look great, son, but I can't hear a word you're saying.
You're on mute, Ryan. Sorry.
Sorry, my old dog snores now, so I have to mute myself because he gets a bit of a snore. You know what it's like, Knocker. You had a big dinner, you fall asleep, start snoring. So I just try and drown him out. Apologies, but yeah, as I was going to say now, too busy looking at my dog snoring. But yeah, it's gonna be a real tough one. It's going to be really interesting. I'm glad it's happening. And so what I was saying there, apologies. He had a nibble at Mike Taylor. He had a nibble in that press conference. Are people going to be brave enough to ask tough tactical questions? And is he going to handle that again without biting people's heads off? Because if he bites, I think he has a nibble at like he did and gets defensive. I don't think that's going to go down too well. Now, of course, I want him to defend himself. If he's giving a tactical explanation passionately that he believes in, that's fine. But I thought I saw cracks in the temperament those last 2 days, and that may be a concern, or maybe that's just passion. Who knows? Paul, thank you for bringing that up.
I think
it's a real
just on that, right?
Go on, sorry, Knocker.
There is a risk of that because he has got a level of arrogance when he talks, and he has got a little bit of a not better than you mentality, but perhaps I know more than you mentality. And you can see him snapping or firing off something a little bit.
People see through the rubbish as well. If he comes out with rubbish on Tuesday, he'll get called out on it, and it'll be Daz Hale might have to wear like a WWE style referee outfit, I think, on there. And it'll be interesting to see if Wolves bring some security guards with him, because not that I'd want it to get heated, obviously, but I think there will be some interesting questions, really interesting questions.
Well, I hope so, and I hope all the people there take that opportunity and they don't ask any soft questions. They ask fact-based historical questions when you're quoting the club, what they've done, what they've promised, fact-based questions, and then asking them and holding them account. That's the way it needs to be done, and no soft answers. And then ask follow-up questions, which we did in January, which I'm not sure was particularly popular, but we were there for a reason. And when there was an answer we didn't like, plenty of people in the room had their say on their backup. Paul, thank you for being part of the latest Wolves report. Last but not least is Roger Lane. Just going back to the football, we have all known what he said for today for weeks, if not months. So why pick the same team and formation, one change apart, especially after last week's debacle? It makes no sense whatsoever. Just finishing up on Rob Edwards, as it's the main topic, and as apparently I can't stand him so much. His rigidness is a concern, and that's not because I don't like him, because I don't really care either way. But for me, guys, that seems to be tactically, this is the big red flag for me in terms of being rigid. So we're just finishing up on that, and then we'll just head quickly to Fulham.
Yeah, I think I had a chat earlier on with JP about this as well, and and in his article he brings it up about Middlesbrough, and it's frustrating now because I remember when Rob was appointed and all the Middlesbrough fans were like, yeah, whatever, like you can have him, and sort of as Wolves fans, you sort of want to stick to somebody that wants to come to your football club. But annoyingly, I think that a lot of them were right. You look at Hellberg's numbers at Middlesbrough, they've massively improved in terms of some of their stats since Rob's moved on. I think Wolves fans can accept it a bit more. Like, part of me understands what Rob was trying to say to Mike Taylor. I don't think he needed to bite his head off like he did on Friday, but I sort of get he knows that we can't go all out attack because we haven't got the players or we'll end up embarrassing ourselves. But if we say, for instance, against Fulham, we lose 90 minutes, we lose 1-0, but we know we've absolutely given our all, absolutely battered them. You can sort of appreciate it a little bit more. But like for argument's sake, yesterday we rolled over and got our bellies tickled after 5 minutes, and that's it. That's done. And I have no doubt a large percentage of Wolves fans either walked out that ground for one after spending that money, or just turned the radio or the stream off or whatever. So it's frustrating. And like I said towards the start of the show, there's got to be stuff internally as well that is reasons why he's picking the team and picking the personnel that he is. And hopefully in the coming days and coming weeks, we're a little bit clearer on why he's doing what he's doing, because it certainly hasn't worked.
Absolutely. Nocky, final point on Rob Edwards.
Yeah, I think you've both articulated it perfectly. Tactically, he's not fluid enough for us. I don't see enough in terms of being able to change the game, in-game management. I just don't see enough from him at the moment. Is that because he's a poor manager, or is it because what he's working with at the moment is very, very limited and doesn't allow him to rotate and change what needs to change? You're not going to know until he's had a full pre-season and he's got his own squad in. But by then, it could be far too late for us, him and the club.
I just think on that final note, I'll end on there. I think the club needs to sort of raise their flag on Rob Edwards if it's going to be Rob Edwards for next season, and come out with some kind of statement. We understand it's been a bad season, but Rob's our guy. We're backing him. He's there. I think that needs to happen. And I think when that happens, that buys more time next season, because a fresh start, fresh squad. And even though Nocky's right at what he says, I don't think everyone's going to be on side now, because a bad start could be a really bad start because some fans are on the edge with him anyway. I think Wolves need to come out and say, he's our guy, we're backing him, we believe this is the guy to take us back to the Premier League. Of that kind of statement, is that fair to sort of get fans back on side, just to get everyone on board?
I don't think it'll necessarily get people on board, but we all know what we're doing now.
But we know where we stand there, don't we?
Yeah. It stops speculation and things like that. And I think if it comes Tuesday, I think that's a big indication on he'll more than likely be the manager come next season. But I don't know. I think it's one of those two things. It'll probably pee a lot of people off, but at the same time, like where we stand, we can just crack on. And it just stops any speculation and any conversation about it. So it'll probably be good for every party, really, if that were the case.
Absolutely. Nocky?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's all been said. It's a very big week for him, and it's a very big week for the club, I think.
Roger, thank you for being part of the latest Wolves report. There was one comment, not quite as much fun as the last one, but there was one comment I wanted to clear up. Adrian Richards asks, is Tudor going to be broadcast, or in the case of editing? My understanding is they're recording at Molyneux on Tuesday, and the WM football phone on Wednesday. It will be broadcast out, an edited version then is what I believe. I don't think they can play the 2 hours, but I believe it'll be played on Wednesday. That's my understanding. I'll stand corrected and update. But BBC WM's Daz Hale, guest of and friend of the show, he'll be hosting it. He will be back on the Wolves report again in the near future as well. We're coming up to the end of the show, hour and 8 minutes in. Dave and Nocky on Sunday evening overtime. That's the summer budget gone already. Fulham at home next Sunday, gents. It's hard to get excited, but it is the last game of the season. I will be going. I'm sure you boys are as well. Nocky, what are we looking for in the team? What do you want to happen next week, other than a shot on goal?
I don't really care who plays. I really couldn't care less at this point. I'd like to see a bit of fight, a bit of passion about us, a bit of work rate, someone getting decked, a few reducers flying in, just something to give you a little bit of hope that maybe there's a bit of pride left in the shirt. But I just kind of feel like I'm going because it's the last game. It's my club. I want to see them over the line. I'm not expecting a great deal out of it. I feel like the ship has sailed. Molineux could be horrible. And if we do turn up and we get beaten, I think Fulham are an half decent side as well. If we lose that game, I think there's going to be some really, really frustrated fans. And I think after the game could be a really nasty time for Rob, especially if they consider doing a lap of honour at the end of the game, which I hope they decide not to do. But let's just see a little bit of maybe something different. Can he bring in, maybe give a Dozy a start for all I care, just do something a little bit different and give the fans something to hang on to. And maybe if we can put in a performance, win a game, almost, it sounds daft, but can we take it to the last day to maybe finish above Burnley? Because we know that's worth £3 million at the end of the season, which could be massive for us. So, yeah, just give us something to hold on to. I think predominantly just don't embarrass us again.
Dave, if we went into this game and thought, I can't get embarrassed again, and we tucked in and we lost 1-0, but it was boring, I'd rather lose 6-3. I'd rather lose 5-2. I'd rather see Wolves have a go, as Nocky said, drop a few reducers in, score a couple of goals, give people something to remember and to talk about, give a bit of content for our podcast to talk about a goal. That'd be nice. Yeah. I'd just like to see him have a go. Who cares now? Honestly, who gives a shit now? Just have a go. If you get smashed now, I'm really past the point. We'll get smashed when we're defending anyway. So let's attack and get smashed and try and score a couple of goals. It's fair, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if we go into Sunday afternoon, I mean, there's literally no expectation from any Wolves fan going into that game anyway. And he stinks the gaff out. He's doing himself absolutely no favours whatsoever, is he? So he's got to do something. He's got to shake something up. We've had this conversation. People at home will know that his squad's not the strongest. And you look at the bench for some sort of inspiration. There's very little of it as well. So, like Nocky said, a little bit of fight, a little bit of passion. Like you said, get a couple of goals. I've no doubt C Senor will be sang for 3/4 at least of the game.
And so it should.
And if there's any part of us that can make Raul feel like he can come home in the summer, we should try our very best to do so. And I know it's a long shot.
Dave has a party with the Wolves Report exclusive.
Yeah, I hope so. But no, I would love that to happen. But yeah, just don't embarrass us. And I agree. Lap of honour, I wouldn't even bother. And just get in there, get the game done, let's go home and draw a line under it and go again next season.
Absolutely. Dave, we are at prediction time. You've never had the bongos before, but it is your time to get the bongos. After the bongos, Dave, your first scorer prediction and score. Best bit of the show.
I like that. 1-1.
You are welcome back on the Wolves Report.
There you go. Yeah, I
scoring though.
Raul,
you dirty dog.
Raul both goal. No, Raul scores for Fulham, and then go on, Armstrong for his element of hard work we've seen at times this season.
Good stuff. We'll take that. Yeah. Take 1-1. I'll take a goal. I'll take a shot. To be honest,
yeah.
Best bit in it, nothing. That's all we've got.
It's the only bit of the show that sounds positive is the bongo. 3-1 Fulham. Harry Wilson, is he fit? I think he's fit. He probably
could be a Wolves player now as well.
He's better than that.
Yeah, it's true. I'm going to go with. I'll get told off. See, Dave. When I predict us to lose, Nocky goes, do your prediction again. You never predict us to lose.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with 2-2, and I'll go with Toti Gomez just for comedy value. This has been episode 165 of the Wolves Report. Thank you so much to Nocky for giving it me Sunday even. Dave has a party from Talking Wolves. Hopefully do some more crossovers soon. We have just under 1,100 live listeners. Drop us a like, follow, retweet. That will be very much appreciated across all platforms. Over 1,000 people listening live to us complain about the mighty Wolverhampton Wanderers. Hope you've enjoyed it. Up the Wolves.